Guys, people may not know that this is actually the second take because Scott forgot to hit record on the recorder. And if you are watching the video version of this and looking into his dead eyes right now, you wouldn't know that either. But just before this, Vince was telling us a little bit about his love for the band Creed, which we now ceremoniously play at the beginning of every podcast. Vince, why do you like Creed so much?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I really think it's the spirituality to their lyrics, the depth of it. When it comes to actual lyricists from the early 2000s, I think that they really do stand above kind of all of their peers. I put it on both to be, entertained as normal, but also just to be moved.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're looking for something to, I really feel like I'm overplaying it, but it's true, and that is to touch your soul.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
I grew up Catholic, and so a lot of singing in church and being moved by the depth of the song, the feeling of being sort of displaced and being part of something larger than yourself, going to a higher place. And so in the same way, I just kick on that Creed, and it brings me right back there in the same way. Also, every word I have said since you threw this over to me was a lie. I completely hate Creed and think they're a garbage band.
Here's
Scott?
why you're wrong.
I love Creed. I've always loved Creed. They will have a special place in my heart. Also, I am still not over the fact that I did not hit the record button.
Well, if you love this dissertation on the great 90s band and 2000s band Creed, you're going to love the rest of the episode on the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic, a podcast that proves even a cyberstalker can forge lasting friendships.
Am I the cyberstalker in this story?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
That's fine.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. I think people need to quit talking about that because you're going to have, what do they call, copycat killers?
What does that mean?
In this case, are you suggesting that people will try to form copycat friendships?
I 100% am, yes.
Okay.
And I would be a liar if I haven't said that that's been attempted.
Yeah, no, it happens sometimes.
Okay, so other things we talked about on the first recording of this is we did a little gift exchange. I gave Vince a giant bag of sparkling ice because for those of you that want to be the world's greatest and most prolific, efficient, and time-intensive painter, there's one secret. Vince, what is that secret?
That secret is filling your veins with a sweet black raspberry sparkling ice, God's very nectar, ambrosia given from the top of Mount Olympus itself.
It's also fairly cost-effective.
Yeah.
I picked up a tenner black raz for Vince as we in the
on the inside, the sparkling ice inside.
Yeah. We in the industry call it. It's 10 for 10. $10, you get 10 sparkling ices. That'll last Vince a good 6 hours.
Hold on, sell me on this stuff. Why the hell do you drink it so much?
You want to try one? I got one here.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to go ahead.
One of his sparkling ice.
I mean, I've got a flavor that you're either gonna like or not gonna like. It's pineapple coconut, so probably not where you want to test your waters on. Okay, so it's
don't start him on the advanced level, man.
Yeah, right.
It's like throwing him into the water level of Battletoads and being like, play this game.
Dude, oh my God, those fucking surfboards do not control for shit. So it's less flavor intensive than soda.
Mm-hmm.
It has the carbonation, so you get that little bit of carbonation. It doesn't have caffeine, so it's not going to get you a headache. It's not going to get you jazzed and ramped up and get the shakes while you're painting. It hydrates you a bit without being lame, just like boring-ass water. And they're in tall, phallic-shaped bottles. I don't know what's not to love.
Yeah, I mean, the real short answer is I don't drink caffeine. Okay.
Intentionally,
yes.
Why do you not drink caffeine?
Many reasons, health reasons being the primary amongst it. But
okay.
So yeah, I don't drink caffeine. I don't drink anything effectively except water derivatives. Right, is what it comes down to. For a long time, I drank a lot of caffeine, and I mean, long story short, I was peeing way too much and very worried about my prostate as I turned 40 years old.
Okay, we're getting into it.
So I mean, you want to know I don't care. That's a story.
Listen, no one wants to wear the adult diapers to bed.
No,
yeah, correct.
Trust me on this.
And so at any rate, I tried to find many water replacements, and for a while, that was Sobe water. Sobe water was my jam. Now that was not actually carbonated. But it was delicious and great. It had a wonderful flavor. I think they used stevia or something like that. I don't know. Who cares? But anyways, then that got discontinued because I loved it, and all things I love will eventually die or get discontinued. So I'm sorry to both of you for your untimely demises.
Oh my God.
Oh, shit.
And
I didn't see where that was going, but now I understand.
yeah. And so then I had to find something else, and I found sparkling ice. The problem with most other, like, a lot of those waters have either they just, like, randomly throw caffeine in them, which sucks, or they're like, oh, it has a flavor infusion. It's infused with flavor.
That just means
the
it's
flavor
like
it's infused with is generally butt.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it tastes like you're drinking a flower from your garden, just like you crushed it up and shoved it in your face. It's awful.
Okay.
Or it's like the drink was placed next to a lemon on the table.
It met a lemon once at a party.
Yeah.
I heard about it. Yeah.
And you're like, they don't taste like shit. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
This is exactly the right balance.
You guys, it is. Sparkling Ice, please. You need to sponsor us. This is a podcast about Creed and Sparkling Ice.
And also Oreo Cakesters and insulated cups.
Yes. So I also since I was bringing a treat for Vince, I brought Scott some Oreo Cakesters because he is what was the term I used? Soft cookie eating bitch.
That's what you said.
And then I brought for myself.
I will admit that I find these, like, wholly and authentically disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, they're not good.
It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where half of the world is real and half of it's cartoon. That shit's cartoon.
Oreos are meant to be hard cookies. Like, you stay in your lane, Oreo. Okay, this is not appropriate.
You
behavior.
can't tell Oreo what to do.
I most certainly can.
You can't tell
I just
Creed
did.
what to do.
Let's.
Stay away from Creed and soft Oreos.
All right, they are 6 feet from the edge,
Okay.
and they're thinking.
They're thinking about being Oreos, but they turned out
Then he
soft.
says the next line. He says maybe 6 feet isn't so far down.
Yeah.
So maybe then he's referring to being 6 feet away from 6 feet down. This is. Is
So
this
do we have to calculate a
multiplication?
hypotenuse?
Yeah, right. This is just math.
Okay, so he's the square root of 36 feet away.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who dug the hole?
Wait, no, that's not right.
Did Jesus dig the hole for him? It's got dark, Creed. I obviously brought for myself Famous Amos, made famous by the episode of The Office where they invite Famous Amos to speak to the sales teams. Because it's a superior hard cookie. God damn it. It's a hard cookie. Hard cookie nation. Rise
That's
up.
good. Let me just say that it is the square root of the square root of 6 plus the square root of 6. Not the square root of 36.
No, it's 6 squared.
Because it's
A squared plus
a
B
squared
squared
plus b
equals C
squared.
squares.
And so if 6 is the a squared, that means you would take the square
Oh,
root.
sorry. Yeah, you're right. 36 plus 36. So it's the square root of 72.
Right now,
The square root of 72 feet away. You're absolutely correct.
for the audio listeners, there's actually a wonderful visual demographic of a screenshot of this music video of Michael Staff standing somewhere, and then we've drawn out a triangle
With math.
with math, and we've gotten to the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Pythagoras would be very disappointed.
Very disappointed. Yes. Yeah.
oh
I'm
man,
sorry for not hitting the fucking record button, okay?
no, this is
I am
way
now
better the second
over
time
it.
around.
yeah, this is the way better version,
All right.
I think. Also, Vince and I traded Magic cards live.
Oh, right. Yeah, and I ridiculed them for being 12 years old.
Yes,
Because only 12-year-olds trade cardboard, okay? Pfft, get out of
Trading card rules. That's trading cards rules.
I know. It's in this day and age where you can just buy whatever you want, including single cards on the internet. The joy of our childhood of trading a Magic card that you had doubles of for a Magic card you didn't have, dude, that's like your third sip of sparkling ice after crossing the fucking desert, my friend. That's a beautiful feeling.
All right, on to the Preamble Ramble. John, you broke your ribs.
I saw Whirly Ball. Okay, I'm going to explain what Whirly Ball is because if you're anything like me, you didn't know that this was a sport, and there's an asterisk in front of that word sport for this. Whirly Ball is played on, visualize, if you will, a hockey rink. But the hockey rink's smaller. It's roughly a little bit bigger than a tennis court.
Is it a basketball court?
No, I don't think it's as big as a full-size basketball court. It's like when you were in elementary school, when you had like the smaller basketball courts, it's kind of like that. But it has like walls all the way around it like a hockey rink. And you are in bumper cars. And then also remember from elementary school. Remember
Wait,
those?
Is this real?
This is a real
is.
fucking thing.
Okay.
This is
insane.
the short story of how I broke my ribs. You remember in elementary school you had those plastic C-shaped scoop things that you'd put in a wiffle ball into and you could like fling them?
Sure.
That is your weapon in whirly ball.
Okay.
And up about like there are things that look like basketball backboards on the each end of this death circle, and there's a target in there which does have it has electric sensor. So if you whip the wiffle ball into the target, it lights up and your team scores a point. And the games are timed. They're typically 10-minute games. Now, when we got there, it's a big place. It's right by Mall of America. It's huge. It's like a 3-story building, and they have like 6 courts of this shit. I was like, holy shit, I didn't know this was a real thing. When you walk in, the first thing they have you do is sign a waiver that says if you get injured, you can't sue them. And then when you go to like walk in, open the door to go into the court, there is a giant in red lettering, "We are not liable for any injuries." I should have known that this was going to end poorly. So about 3 minutes into our hour-and-a-half session, I leaned over hard and fast to try to pick up the ball with my scoop, and I got bumper to bumper crashed. So my whole ribs just below my pec smashed into the hard metal railing of the thing, and I heard and felt something that could be described mostly as like stepping on a lot of gravel. I was like, oh no, in a ton of pain. But I soldiered on. It was fine. We got through it. The next morning I woke up and I couldn't move. Going anywhere from prone to standing, bending over at all, picking anything up, extremely painful. This was Sunday that this happened. It is now Wednesday we are recording this. It's gone down a bit. They're at least bruised, but why would I go to a doctor and spend $500 for him to tell you, yeah, it's going to get better eventually? So that's whirly ball. Don't do it. It's a fuckload of fun, though.
It's basically Midwest Quidditch.
Yeah.
It's kind
of redneck Quidditch, really.
Yeah.
It feels like some kind of insane amalgam of 10 different things.
It is.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
And the thing is like, once you get the hang of it, you realize that you're like, oh, well, it shouldn't be that difficult to score or whatever. But anytime someone was like on a bit of a straight line and they're like getting close enough so you can get an easy shot, the second you take your eyes off the road and start lining up your shot, someone will smash into you from a random direction and you are flung around like a crash test dummy.
Sure.
It just spells like they gotta be sponsored by a local chiropractor. This fucking place, because
I'm gonna ram him.
That's my story of being hurt.
You know, my favorite part about doing a podcast with you two fine, distinguished gentlemen is the just like you guys have your own cute little reference language that you guys have amongst one another. I just sit over here, decade younger, just kind of politely nod along as you guys be fucking 40-year-olds.
1, correct. 2, it's all right. You can take your ultimate revenge when you laugh at us staring in the ground as you're still alive and we're nothing but ash, and you're like, yeah,
I will.
older now.
I will. I'll come to your fucking funeral and I'll just laugh.
Yes, please do.
You will be standing there as everyone kind of disperses, and he'll be slowly whispering to himself, and I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
He'll measure out the triangle.
On the ground, yeah, absolutely.
So
you played some Necromunda, right?
I played some Necromunda. We played a crazy scenario because we felt like it would be thematic for the two factions being played. John has a faction of Chaos Helots, which is kind of one of those like weirder ones that cool people who are like deep into Necromunda play. It's like, there are some factions like that from Mordheim, which are like not like the most obvious ones. They're like kind of like one layer deeper, It's like, oh, this was one that was printed in a White Dwarf. It's like, oh, okay, I played the cool one. So he plays the Chaos Helots, and he wanted to be doing a chaos ritual that I had to stop.
This is not me, John, by the way.
No, it's John Schaefer, yeah. And basically, we thought that
I could hear the H.
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. basically the premise is that he has someone who is doing a ritual, and I have to stop that person. And initially, we thought the game would be very difficult for him to get the ritual off, because in Necromunda, shooting is incredibly strong. It's very easy to pin someone, get them down on the ground, and it's, you know, kind of easy to kill them. And so if someone is like out in the middle trying to do some unholy ritual, like shooting them with a long rifle is very simple. But upon reading the rules, we discovered that the person has to start in the middle of the board, but they don't have to stay there. And so immediately, you know, you can just run away behind a wall and then it's fine.
It's like a mobile ritual.
Kind of. And also, if that main guy dies, he can delegate someone else to be the ritual person, and that person doesn't need to be in the middle of the table. They can be somewhere else.
Well, he just throws the cell phone that he's calling the chaos demon on.
Exactly.
It's Wi-Fi ritual, really.
Is, right, yeah.
No hard line required.
So if we figured that out midway through, and we're kind of like, oh, that makes it easier for you to get it off. And then also, as the ritual escalates, every single round, which honestly it doesn't even escalate. There's nothing in the rules about like the ritual getting stronger and stronger every single round. You just roll a d6, you add some value based on whether or not the guy is doing the ritual currently in the end phase, or if he's like pinned or dead, and then you get a result, and then things happen. That didn't make any sense to us, because you would never be able to get to the final values in this chart because there aren't enough sides on a d6 to get that high. So the scenario is written like awfully. I'm convinced that some scenarios these guys just write on the back of a napkin, hand over to publishing, and just say "fucking send it." And then that's
like Jack Kerouac style writing. Just
yeah, that fucking guy. Good. Yeah, that guy. Definitely that guy. Whoever the hell that guy is. Tell me who he is.
One of the most famous American authors, writer of On the Road and many other truly seminal pieces of fiction.
Jack Kerouac
of fiction / nonfiction.
Do you think I can read?
It's a good book. Check it out. It's pretty classic.
Which book in particular?
On the Road. Just read On the Road. I mean, he wrote many things, but just read On the Road.
Are there Space Marines in it?
Sort of.
Yeah. Okay. Willie Nelson wrote the
There's a lot of people using drugs, and so like, you know, and there's a lot of people who were in the military, so I guess you could kind of count it that way. They're in space.
Okay, and then Willie Nelson,
he wrote the sequel. Yeah.
Famous author Willie Nelson wrote the sequel to this book.
Yeah, he did.
Why?
He did it in song form though.
Oh, okay, all right. This is another
it?
Fucking reference to some bullshit.
On the Road Again.
Yeah. That's not a sequel. That is based on it.
I can't help get on the road again.
That's a Willie Nelson song.
That's the joke he's building on.
With my friends.
On the road again.
I love it.
Sequel.
I think the joke is that I don't get it. I think that's the joke.
It makes for better podcasting, frankly, if you don't get it.
I know that song. I didn't know Willie Nelson wrote it though.
Yeah. It's one of his most famous songs.
Okay, the most famous song.
One of his most famous songs.
Yeah. So, anyways, Necromunda. I don't have Willie Nelson in my gang. I wish I did. But basically, what ended up happening was the very first result on this chart, which was rolled every single turn because it was the lowest value, was everyone on the battlefield is subject to insanity. And the only people that aren't are people that have a special rule that allow them to subvert it, which are his champions and his leaders, John's stuff. So, like, his most important dudes. But everyone else in my gang and, like, all of his peons, at the start of every single activation, have to pass a willpower check. And basically it amounts to a 50-50 if you pass it or not. And then if you don't pass it, you roll a d6. And on a 1, super bad shit happens. On a 2 to a 5, your opponent gets to control your fucking model, meaning they can shoot like their allies. And on a 6, nothing happened. Well, surprise, surprise. No one in the game, if they failed a willpower check and were insane, ever rolled a 6 and could just do a normal turn. It was always, I'm going to control your dude, and like I'm going to walk him into the corner of the map. I'm going to fucking shoot this your ally over here. Like several times I was able to shoot the guy doing the ritual in the back with one of his own like sniper guys. So it was just totally insane. It was totally insane. Any strategy that I might have had got thrown out the window immediately, and it was the wildest scenario I've ever played of Necromunda.
You know, if I was the guy, I'm the leader guy now. I'm going to put myself in his shoes. I'm Chaos Helot. Chaos Helot. So wasn't that the name of the servant people that the Spartans conquered, the Helots? I believe so.
Maybe.
Anyways, that actually made up like 9/10 of their society. At any rate, so I'm this guy, and I've dedicated my life to chaos. Weird choice already, but sure, why not? It's a dark world, right? But if my boss comes to me and he's like, "Hey, what's up, buddy? Here's what I need. I need you to do this ritual to summon stuff. And I'll be like, okay, cool. And he's like, hey, side note, it's going to drive all your own people insane. And I'm like, well, that seems like an upside. I want to make them crazier. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, just go have fun then. And as soon as I started the ritual, if one of my own guys shot me, I'd be like, all right,
Enough of this.
wrong ritual. Time out, boss. I'm sorry. I didn't realize this was in the deal. Like that, you're doing the wrong ritual if it makes your own people shoot you.
Are you questioning the narrative of a Necromunda scenario?
I'm questioning the logic of that leader.
Yeah.
He's clearly far gone.
Yeah, far gone. Very far gone. As far gone as the rule writers of Necromunda are, ostensibly. But that's Necromunda.
Vince, do you have any funny stories or silly jokes or anything in the insight to Vince's life that you'd like to share with the audience? Now's the time, the Preamble Ramble. No pressure. Don't fuck this up.
Yeah, sure. I'm literally going to share the same thing from before.
We'd pretend that this is the first time you ever said it.
You're ruining the mirage.
The illusion, the prestige. Yeah, no, look, my life has been very taken up by something that we're going to talk about here in a minute over the past very many weeks and days. Because
oh, no.
Yeah, it turns out that when you launch a new game, it takes up a lot of your life. But anyways, but the past couple of days specifically, I woke up Memorial Day morning. You know, I thought, oh, it's Memorial Day. I actually get the day off from my normal work. I get to sleep in. I was woken up rather early by the sound of and that was my dog throwing up on the floor. As one of my dogs was sick, and it began making its way over Monday and yesterday through the rest of the dogs. I have 3 dogs. They're the cutest dogs in the world. And Alex, put a picture here of my dogs. This is what I want, Alex. Put a picture here.
This
I'll
is
send
one
you
request.
the picture. Okay, I'll send you the picture. At any rate, see, tell me those dogs aren't adorable. So, anyways, they've been having little tummy troubles, and so yeah, cleaning up dog puke for the past couple of days. So that's been my life. So then that was still happening, but then I left my wife, and I was just like, okay, well, have fun with that. And then I got on a plane this morning and flew away. So
Wasn't there something else kind of like not nice happening when you left last time as well?
it always happens whenever I'm leaving the house. Some
calamity
will befall my wife. Yes, it's every time. Like the furnace broke one time. The refrigerator just gave out another time. Like it's often appliance or dog related. You know, there's only so many things I suppose it can be. The past 2 times I've been gone in a significant way, my wife sent me pictures of her huddled under my gaming table in my basement because like the table we paint on. Right, you know how big and like heavy duty that thing is, right? Like it's super heavy duty. So there's been tornado warnings because there's like tornadoes in the area. So she goes and she puts like a mattress, like she has this thing, the little air mattress under the table, and she huddles under there with the dogs because it's like the safest place in the basement. It wouldn't, that table, the whole house would have to come down on to collapse it. So I've gotten pictures of that the past 2 times I've been gone. So yeah, it's just been like a real, when I leave, calamity strikes.
Yeah.
I am the ward. I keep the evil juju away.
Okay. All right. Well, Vince, I heard that you made a game for me.
I did. I made a game specifically for you, Scott. All right. So this is the game. There you go. I'm sure we'll show art pictures and stuff. I'll give you a bunch of art so you can share it. This is Deth Wizards. Yeah, this is what's been taking up my life. As we're recording this, it's basically, I don't know when this will come out, but as we're recording this, to further break the illusion, it is the Wednesday after Memorial Day, so this came out the Friday of that weekend. What is Deth Wizards, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, John and Scott.
Yeah, I was thinking in my mind.
I figure we just set him on this and let him go, you know?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do want your questions, but I'll give the basic pitch. Deth Wizards it's Uncle Adam and I's newest game. So, you know, we have a company named Snarling Badger. This is our 4th full game, 5th publication. Following up on Reign in Hell, Space Station Zero, Majestic 13, our yearly zine Snarl, and then this, Deth Wizards. Deth Wizards is set in the land of death. That's why it's DETH. See?
Oh. I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And
wait, what? No, why does that make sense?
It's literally the country's name is Death.
Okay.
And they are wizards from that place. But they are also necromancers.
That doesn't explain why it's spelled like mega death.
Because Adam had a funny idea to play with this double entendre. He had this joke in his head of like the land being called Death and then them also being Deth Wizards, and he thought that was really fun.
I get that, but it's not related to the spelling though.
No.
Okay.
That's it. He had the idea of like calling it without the A, and then he's like, it'd be three funny things. It'd be search engine optimization. It would be very funny to have the double entendre, and it's just cool. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Let's do it. Let's go with it.
It sure seems a lot less funny when you have to break it down.
When
like
you
that.
fully explain it.
Welcome to a podcast with me.
That is what makes jokes the most funny. At any rate, when he suggested it, the first thing that was in my mind was a guy with like I wanted a piece of art with like two fists holding forward, and it just said like Deth WZRD across it. And I thought that would be like the super most coolest dude, but we didn't get that piece of art. Anyways, Deth Wizards is a game of necromantic skirmish combat. You are a necromancer. There are sort of 6 different necromantic legacies. There's all sorts of different types of necromancer you can be. And you build your horde of undead. When you start out, it could be as small as 2 undead if they're very big, or 7 undead if they're sort of traditional like skeletons or zombies, simple small undead. All undead have ratings from 1 through 4 that kind of defines how powerful they are and stuff like that. And over time, you can play it in solo, co-op, or skirmish, and all 3 of those elements can interweave throughout a campaign. So you can play a game alone, and then play a game with a friend, and then play a game against your friend and try to kill them. And all of those contribute to the campaign, to the experience, to the growth of your necromancer. You build your lair. You go through different story scenarios. You gain experience. You learn new powers. You gain all sorts of cool, necromancy type special abilities. Your body can suddenly be made of bugs or stuff like that. You, in the story play missions, you actually are the point of this game. Like one of the first words that I wrote down when I was designing this game was the word proactivity. I know it sounds really weird, and like when I talk about this, it's super inside baseball, and people are like, "What? That doesn't sound super cool, Vince. That's not metal. Proactive isn't metal.
That's not necromancers."
Right. But like, let me explain. In most games, like John, you and I have played D&D for many years, and Scott, you've been doing some role playing recently as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the heroes, you're reactive, right? So in a game, often, like a role-playing game, if you're the heroes, you're reactive. What I mean by that is like the villain has a plan. They're doing something, right? They're going to go to a place, steal a thing, kill a person, assassinate something, and then the heroes show up and react to it, right? So that's kind of what's going on. Heroes tend to be reactive to the villain's proactive plans. As soon as I realized we were playing the bad guy, the villain, but also the protagonist, it let me turn all the expectations on its head. So I was really focused on making sure that you're proactive. The necromancer, your character, the main figure you're manipulating, is immortal. They don't have a health stat or a durability or anything like that. Like, they can't die. A million undead could just sit there and beat on them all day. They're not going to die. The people who are in the game that you fight against do not have the power to kill you. You are, for all intents and purposes, immortal. And so I wanted to play with that where, like, where there's a different sort of thing you're trying to do here. You're the proactive party. You choose your evil adventure. So like when you're in story play, you decide, do you want to rob a graveyard, assault a village? Those are the types of missions. You're going to go try to steal some ancient lore from an arcane college. Are you going to kill the king? All the way up to like trying to go through your dark apotheosis ritual and become a god, that sort of thing, right? And so like it's sort of a hub-based mission system with difficulty ratings. So you know what you're doing. You can choose which mission you want to play every time. And every mission has a normal mode and an advanced mode that makes it more difficult, like hard mode. So as you're playing through, you can like replay scenarios on the hard setting and really super challenge, but then also get more rewards, all sorts of stuff like that. You're opposed in the story missions by heroes like warriors, paladins, rangers, rogues, wizards, priests, that kind of stuff, who are the heroes of the land, trying to stop your evil schemes. Your job is to kill them. And one of the most fun things you can do is, after each mission, if you're playing in a campaign, you can try to create new undead, of course. But you can also try to raise the heroes you destroy and raise them as unique undead. So once you've sort of ripped the heart and soul out of this holy paladin, you can raise them as your own personal dark death knight in your servitude eternally.
I like that.
Yeah, this is going to be difficult to talk about this for only 20 minutes. I have a million questions.
I want you to rapid fire questions at me.
Okay. The first thing that you said, well, first of all, I had a Megadeth themed intro for this podcast where I wrote a hobby version of Holy Wars Punishment Due that I never got to do, and I'm sad about that. But anyways, when you first said that this game is made co-op, single player,
skirmish, like
versus.
Yeah.
The first thing my brain says as a consumer is there's no way you could write a game that satisfies all of those things. And so I'm curious, when you sat down to make this, was that like part of like the original DNA of the game? You were like, I want to make a game that has the rules support blending all of these modes in a pleasant way? Or was that a thought you had later on in the development, and really one of those modes is the primary way to play the game?
Yeah, great question. So with it, I'm actually, first of all, I appreciate your faith in me as a game designer, that would seem impossible that you could, that how could you write that, Vince, you liar? No, no, it's funny I like the way you framed that there, because actually with some of the past games, they have been much more focused on certain things. So like Reign in Hell was much more versus focused from its initial inception, and then we added some solo playthrough and expansion. Space Station Zero and Majestic 13 were very focused on the solo and co-op play. And the skirmish was kind of like, we knew we wanted it, but it's sort of there. It's ancillary. It's there to have fun, but it's not like the primary focus of the game. Our guiding principles from this, like from the jump, from bullet one, I had solo, co-op, skirmish, in balance, intertwinable. Like it was my third bullet point, I believe, off the top of my head on my list. So like as I was writing this from the jump, I knew everything had to work toward that. So every thing from starting the primary loop out, I knew it had to work like that.
Okay. What's one thing other than that is different than the past games you have made? Did you try to innovate in some way with this game, or did it just come naturally?
No, absolutely. We always tried it. It's like when you're a game designer, you want to innovate and do fun stuff and different things, right? And I do think that the story missions in this, the way I described it, where like it is this hub that you're deciding to run on. I'll like be flipping this to this so you can actually see what I'm talking about here as I'm going through it. But the basic idea of the thing is I really like the idea of you being able to choose what you want to do. So what I mean there is like you sit down and you say, there you go, I got to the, so like I want to conduct a ritual, I want to rob a graveyard, I want to assault a noble villa, steal from an arcane college. There's a big list of these on the list page. And you see like, shows you how to set up the terrain and stuff like that and yada yada, and how to generate the heroes. And like, I think that is very different because most of the games we'd written previously, especially for sort of story things, it was a very linear type adventure, right? Like you start here, story beat 1 happens, story beat 2 happens, story beat 3 happens. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like you're like reading a book, right? But you're playing through the book. And with this, it's very much not that. Like you can jump around, go back, do things in how you want, just play with the difficulties of the individual missions, bring less undead to get more experience or more undead to just kind of house it because you're just trying to like, I'm 2 experience away from getting this thing. So you call up the whole horde and just go like smash some lower level mission to just like get the couple experience points you need to get the reward you want, right? Which, by the way, is actually super fun to just bring a powerful horde and go play a low-level mission. I mean, if you ever played a video game and then, like, went back to a starting area and just taken it to the cleaners because you're like, yeah, who's powerful now? Eat it, you plebes. And you just, like, clean their clock, right? So I think that is very different in the way it plays and the way you experience it. And I was pretty happy with how that came out.
That's awesome. You make a game a year, it seems.
That's correct. 2, actually, because I have to write one for our zine as well. That's a smaller game. It's usually only like 12 pages, but it's still a game.
So do you have a Google Doc or some kind of reference doc where you have ideas for other games you have yet to make?
Yes, 100%. Adam and I both keep individual notes files where we just like throw ideas into that we purposely don't share, okay, because we don't want it to be cross-contaminated with the ideas, if that makes sense, right? Like we want to be able to sort of free think. And then we get together and when we make our plans, we're generally working like 2 years in advance. So like I know what the next 2, I've already started writing the thing for the zine this year and we know what the next game is going to be, though I haven't started writing anything on it yet. And we know what the game after that is conceptually. Okay. And so then we have just sort of a big list we draw from, right? Once we throw our brainstorm ideas at each other, we're like, okay, I think there's something there, or no, that's not very good, right? I mean, like it's nice to partner with him because we both could be pretty transparent with each other. He'll be very straight with me if I throw out an idea and he's like, I don't like that, that's stupid. But we can also sell each other. Like sort of the thing 2 years from now that we'll do is a thing that I am super jazzed for, and he is not. But he's letting me like kind of bring him along on this adventure, and he's like, all right, I'll he's giving me enough rope to hang myself is the answer.
And then he's going to be 6 feet from the edge.
Yeah.
Looking down at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I got a question, Vince. Sorry.
Go for it.
Ribs are hurting me there for a second.
I want to just poke you so bad right now.
Oh God. So I got to do some play testing on Deth Wizards.
You did
at the last Vincy Con, and I had a lot of fun playing this game. It's the kind of genre that I first of all very much enjoy, but I really enjoy the options, the customization, the feeling of my Deth Wizard. Even if Scott and I both started a war band and we both had the same like templated Deth Wizard, right? So we both were like we wanted the big giant, monstrous ones.
Sure.
Within a number of sessions, we wouldn't feel the same anymore because of customization. I really like that.
You could also start with very different hordes, right?
Yes.
Because the way you build your horde and the flexibility, sort of the rating system, you're going to individual hordes will feel very different. In addition, sort of the undead you choose will kind of decide your play pattern. In addition, I specifically wrote each of the 6 legacies to have very different play patterns in the game. Like some can play more aggressive and tanky, some need to be more hit and run, some act more glass cannony, some rely on their necromancer, like will play better if their necromancer buffs, some will play better if their necromancer is just like crackling out black energy to also kill. So there's lots of different sort of play patterns you can establish.
Or face tanks the enemy mobs.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, get in there because you can't be killed. So my question is, a bit of this when you're describing the ability to hop back and forth between solo play, between cooperative, and between versus, is going back to original Dungeons and Dragons, so first edition.
Sure.
Remember back then, it was not so much about going along in a game with the same dungeon master, the same party, and you all went through the story together. Back then, the origin of Chainmail and original Dungeons and Dragons, it was about I had a character. Yes. And if so-and-so was running a game a certain day or whatever, I could go in and play my character within his game, and I could hop to another person's next week and so on and so forth. So my character would stay with me and go around. And I kind of felt there's a bit of a connection there where it's like I can hop between these different game modes in Deth Wizards. How do you keep a level of balance in power level? Do you have a tracking system based on number of sessions or scenarios they're run, so that equates to a number? Is there an XP level? How do you kind of keep track of that?
Yeah, so it's really all sort of by the rating of the undead that you have under your command. Like that's kind of the watermark. And there's advice for there, like what happens if you want to do a versus game and your necromancer is super experienced and your friend is relatively new. Then you can kind of it basically pulls to the lowest water level, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So that way your necromancer will still be sort of, they have more abilities and experiences, but the undead themselves don't evolve or change. That's an important thing to note. Like a skeleton that you build in game 10, you create a skeleton after your 10th game, it's a skeleton. It's the same skeleton the person would have started with, right? There are a few necromancers that can make small exceptions to that. Like you mentioned, the monster master, the guy who wants to, or gal who wants to build like large construct created undead. Those will actually have the ability to improve those things because they are artistes, right? That improve their undead over time.
Their canvas.
Yes, absolutely. But like for the most part, a skeleton's a skeleton, right? So like you can, it does come down to it'll self balance out pretty easy on the rating level.
Okay, I like to hear that. That's just where my brain went with that.
Yeah.
What is a new mechanic to this game that has not been seen in the previous Snarling Badger installments?
Yeah, sure. So like obviously we start from scratch. I don't really reuse any particular mechanics game to game.
What's your favorite new mechanic?
I honestly really like, this is going to sound so stupid, but it really actually solved a million problems at once. And that is the rating of the undead. So here I'm opening up to the rating page with our cool giant skeleton friend. You can see like the Shadow Inspector rating 2, the giant skeleton is rating 3, stuff like that. Okay, that's not just like a benchmark of power. So when you activate in the game, each activation is an activation of 4 rating worth of undead and your necromancer. Okay, you with me? So if it's your turn to activate, you activate as close to 4 rating of undead as you can, and then your necromancer.
Okay.
Right.
Now
you can do that in any order. Like you could activate your necromancer, then the undead, or whatever. But that's an activation.
Okay.
4 rating, and then it goes to the other party. So if it's the heroes, they do their activations. Then it comes back to you. You activate another 4 rating, or as close as you can get to that, and your necromancer. So your necromancer activates multiple times per turn. Okay. And that's important. They needed to feel different, more powerful. So your necromancer is like, especially as you build to higher ratings, they'll activate 3 or 4 times in a single turn. Like they are a very potent force on the battlefield, as is like appropriate. That's what's supposed to be happening. But the rating thing solves a very classic problem with these sorts of games. So if you've played a lot of skirmish games, you know that you can often have this challenge where you have the warband that is like a sea of little dinker-doos versus the warband that is like 3 elite dudes. And almost always one of those two will have a tremendous advantage, right? Because either the sea of dinker-doos who are worthless at actually killing anything, but they can just like, depending on the mission, they can just like flood the board, hold the objectives, and just you can't kill them all in time because of the nature of just like walking up, hitting one guy, right? And so that's really strong, or it could be the other way around where the 3 elite dudes who just can't be killed end up being powerful if it's like a just walk to the center of the board and hold this one place, right? They walk up, they kill whatever's there, they sit there, you lose, right? And so the inequity of balance when you're actually activating fig to fig or something, which is how a lot of games will activate it, gets completely removed when you add in that rating piece. Because now the guy with the flesh golem, he activates the flesh golem, right? And that's it. And then the girl who, and that's it. That's his 4 rating worth of undead. He just activated. And then his opponent, she can activate a skeleton archer, a zombie, and a vampire spawn, right? And so no one of hers is going to be able to kill that flesh golem, but she could choose to swarm him. She could choose to throw something in the way and then have the other 3 spread out, right? So it ends up creating a much different experience. So and then ratings get used in a lot of other ways that is fun. Like it opens up to certain spells will reference ratings and will work different, and it happens in the post-game process. Like it's a mechanic that is woven throughout, and it just solved like a million problems.
I like that a lot. Do you have to do the 4 rating, or can it be up to, or can you go over a little bit? What are the rules regarding that?
You must get as close to 4 as you can, given what you have to activate.
Okay. So you can't choose to do 1 skeleton and then pass.
Correct.
Okay, that is really cool. I like that a lot. And the experience that you share about, especially skirmish games and number of activations, is one that I felt a lot too. And different games have different ways of dealing with it. I know that Kill Team's way of dealing with it is allowing the elite squad to then overwatch every single time that they come back to their squad and there isn't a person that then can fight, which is to me stupid, because like if you have an awesome elite squad and you're just giving them more activations to shoot the weaker, more populated squad, it doesn't feel super great. I'm not super familiar with Kill Team. Maybe it is great, but on paper it doesn't seem great. But I like that idea a lot. I think that's really clever.
Yeah, I mean, John, you played it like, and you guys when we did both, because John obviously, as I said, play tested. We did both some versus and we did some co-op testing and stuff like that. And you guys had very different hordes. Like that was intentional.
Yeah, that was. I actually was surprised how much fun we had doing the co-op mission, because you kind of sit down in your typical miniatures game where you're just like, oh, you got your thing, I got my thing, and we're gonna fight each other. That was really fun, and it was unique, and it was kind of like a learn as you go to see more intricacies of strategy you could use based on your makeup. Not only the makeup of your horde, but synergizing with the spells and abilities that your Deth Wizard had and how to get the most use out of them. And the how you would best, as you learned the game, the kinds of things that they were trying to accomplish, how you could either counter them or you could play into their weaknesses. So it had a lot of depth in the head-to-head. But then when we went side by side, it actually felt rewarding to say, I learned what things you did good when we fought each other, and I learned the things that I did good. Let's build up a strategy of you should probably focus on this, and then I'll do this, and then I see you're having trouble with something I didn't think you would have trouble with. I'm going to bring my wizard over to help support you while my giant golem is going to go run amok over there. It was like you had to make a lot of decisions on the fly based on reacting and knowing what you did well and what you were not as good with. So it was shocking how well the systems worked in both game forms.
Yeah, and it was like, I am always somewhat biased towards the fun of co-op play. Like, I think it's a thing that we don't explore enough in these games that I have really tried to build into most of our games. Because, so one of my favorite ways to play Age of Sigmar, just to connect, is in doubles games. So this is, in a doubles thing, you both bring 1,000 points, and it's the two of you against two other people playing 1,000 points each. And it's just, I go to a lot of doubles tournaments, and I really find it fun because you're not alone standing at a table for 3 hours while your opponent's working. You're there, you're hanging out with a friend, and you're both, like, sharing an experience fighting someone else. And it's just a really good time, and you're, like, joking the whole time with them. Things are fun. Oh, way to screw up that roll. You really suck. You know, that kind of thing, you know. And so having the co-op experience here, you can run 2-on-2, by the way, in Versus, but even just playing like the story mode where you're cooperatively trying to accomplish your goal, it just, I don't know, in the game, I find that very rewarding. I know in our Discord right now, there's a lot of people talking about how they're getting their hordes together for running through the story campaign with their partner or significant other. And I just think that's really cool and rewarding. And I hope it like opens the door to more people to be like, hey, partner, spouse, significant other, whatever, come enjoy this thing with me. Come check it out. Even if maybe they're not a normal wargamer, maybe it opens the door in that way to bring them into your world if that's like your main thing. So I don't know. Maybe if you've got like a goth partner or something who's not into wargaming but is super into necromancers and death, this is the door to get them into your world.
Yeah. Would you say that the complexity level is middle, low, high?
Yeah,
rule wise.
So there's quite a high top end once you kind of actually learn all of the nuances of what's going on. But it's pretty simple to get into. Like if I was going to say your just overall kind of the starting complexity, your barrier of entry is like a 4 out of 10. But there's a lot, like as you go through and unlock everything else, there's quite a lot there that can make the game more complex. The higher rating or the higher challenge difficulty scenarios are like obviously more complicated in what they're doing and what the enemies are doing and what they're asking you to do. And then if you then stack advanced on top of that, you know, they can become quite a lot going on. But again, that's intentional. I assume by that point you've played like 10 or 15 games, right? You know what you're doing, so you can handle a little more complexity. I'm always trying to very much pay attention to like how easy is it to exactly. To how easy is it to get started and then bringing them through a natural curve over the experience. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's one of the reasons we've seen the growth in the miniatures related gaming market over the last decade or so. It's typically more seen from board games, and that is the cooperative side. And that is where I'm passionate. I back this game on Kickstarter. I can get my kids, my neighbor, my friend, my spouse to go along for the ride with me because we're doing it together. I'm the one that's more invested, so I can learn all the rules. I can bring you along at the pace that's right for you, and we'll enjoy this together. I like that we're seeing more of these games because there's still not a lot of them out there, but we're seeing more of them. And you and Adam have done as many of these as I think about everybody else. And that is cooperative games that are miniature games, not miniature board games.
Right.
And I think that's a really good thing for the health of our hobby long term, that there are options based on what excites you and in depth and the amount of learning from other games in the sphere, as well as like uniqueness. And you guys have a pretty low bar of, like I said, being able to bring out a new game every year and being miniatures agnostic up to this point, where you can be more agile in just creating a really well-defined, fun-to-play game that you're not asking somebody to invest $250 on this Kickstarter.
Right.
That there's a lot of weight behind that. And have you been going in like your strategy meetings, you and Adam, and you're looking forward in how Snarling Badgers is going to move in the future? Are those kinds of factors that you weave in, or have you changed your conversations in the trajectory of your game company over the last couple of years?
No, I think there's always the same core principles we've had for a while, and we'll always be miniatures agnostic games. We'll probably always do smaller scale games. Now, there might be variants in there, and we always want them to be affordable. I mean, just like Deth Wizards itself, like the PDF is $13. The PDF and book combo is $18. And then we have like supplementary cards you can buy with this. I brought the cards with me as well, and I'll show them to you guys. But anyways, like the cards are like a nice game aid. They're completely optional. We never want to make game aids that are required, or people suddenly have to buy extra stuff. But if they want it just to have an easy reference, the cards are $18. They're really high quality printing, all that kind of stuff. And hopefully by the time people are watching this, we have the PDF of the cards available as well. We're working on that right now. But this, but we do change things sometimes. So this is something you and I have talked about a lot. So for the first time, the 6 main necromancers, the 6 main legacies, we actually have, we partnered with Knucklebones Miniatures, with Matty Knuckles, to have him sculpt 6 miniatures, one for each necromantic legacy.
Oh my, okay, awesome.
And so he was
Very
really
different.
Yeah, so like again, they're not required. We never want to make it required, right? It's not like this has to be the thing you use. Like no. But it was a cool opportunity. We had 6 things. Matt was very much on board for this. His aesthetic was sort of perfectly matched to this. So Adam worked with him. We sent him a brief on kind of each of the 6 legacies and what they were. Like we had basically kind of like both the art and the miniatures are based off the same NPC plates, if that makes sense. Like each legacy has like a template NPC that's like this is what was in our head while we were writing it, if that makes sense. And so so we had 6 miniatures sculpted, and you can get those through STLs, like through our site. And that was a cool partnership. Like we'd like to do stuff like that, work with other small sculptors and independent creators who we can just kind of partner with and send them off to the races and let them be creative, and then we just share everything as life goes forward. So we actually had miniatures for this one. It was cool. That was the first time we've ever done that.
Like it.
And we'll do that again in the future if we see the opportunity to work with other people who we really like. I mean, part of what it is like we're very particular about who we work with. It has to be somebody that we trust, that we know, that we think has got the same shared values as us and stuff like that. We don't ever just want to like, people have asked about like, well, why not do sets of tokens and these kinds of things for the game? And I'm like, because I'd have to go through some manufacturer in China, and I don't feel like betting a major part of my business on whether or not a ship gets through the Suez Canal, right? And I don't know who those people are, and they don't care about the quality of what they're producing for me and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's no relationship there. So we want to work with artists, with sculptors, with people who we know, want to make quality things, and who we hopefully will form a long-lasting relationship with.
I love that. I feel like a lot of people, when they want to make a thing, have a similar thought that you just had, me being one of them, where it's like, I want to make a thing, and I want it to be perfect, and I want all these ducks in a row, and if they can't make a thing like that, they just end up not making it, right? It's like almost like a barrier to entry. But what you've done here is like you're like, I'm going to do what I can do, and then I'm going to present that as a product. And then through continually doing this, I will develop more relationships and then expand this idea of a project more and more and iterate on it each time. And like that is like, hard things take a long time, right? Finding a person who can make tokens that gives a shit about you in your project, that's gonna take a while to do, Yep. But you're doing it, and for me, that's inspiring. Okay, I have one question, although I have many other questions, but to kind of wrap it back into miniature painting here.
We could do a lightning round if you want.
Okay, maybe. I think I need to write them down because they keep coming into my head and then floating out.
Okay.
But the one that I'm like locking in right now is you've painted endless armies.
Yes.
You've made multiple games. What is more satisfying? Painting the last base rim on the last model in an army and seeing it, or getting a printed glossy cover book of a rule set that you entirely were responsible for, pretty much? What's more satisfying?
Boy, that is a really good question.
Yeah. I imagine it. I imagine it has to be so amazing. The book?
The book is the answer, and I'll tell you why. Because the army's not actually done when I paint that last base rim.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Because you and I both know that, like, as time goes on, that army, more models are gonna come out for it. You're gonna add a few models to it. Maybe some units get retired. You know, you'll grow as a painter or whatever. And, like, certainly I grow as a writer. But, like, there is when this book showed up, and this happened all 4 books. I mean, admittedly, the very first one was like the best day of, ever. But but when that box shows up and I open it up and it's the proof and I look at it and it looks good and I see all the art we worked on and obviously we're looking at it. We're doing reviews page by page by page beforehand in InDesign or whatever. But like there is just such a difference to holding the thing. The tactile is so different. And it's definitely that because it feels like done.
Finality.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, if you want to find a link to Deth Wizards and all the goodies that he has for that game, you can find it in the show notes or the description below, depending on where you're listening. Check it out. It sounds like a lot of fun. When you were describing it, I was just like imagining this multi-part YouTube series that is heavy narrative, really cool VFX, like rain sounds, fog, which just kind of goes through the mission and shows the progress of a necromancer. The game kind of just lends itself to it in such a cool way, and I love the theme too. So it's inspiring me.
So just one more quick thing. When you play a skirmish mission, okay, one of the things you do is you generate unusual occurrences, and they're all named like this. Like you can see.
The earth revolts.
Yes, a dark crow calls and all of those things. There's little omens that you roll for in the skirmish games that are like happening because you're getting too much darkness into one area of the world. So that would suit your overlays and sound effects and things.
You could add in a little crow sound there. It's one of those.
That wasn't
just like that, actually. High quality.
Yeah. I assume that you will just play the soundtrack with your voice for every game that's played.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do all the sound effects with just my mouth. First take. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about some other nerdy shit. Vince, do you still play that game, Age of Sigmar?
I do, buddy.
What is wrong, man? What is wrong? Okay, well, John's leaving. All right, pause. Okay, well, John's leaving for this part of the podcast. Age of Sigmar, it's coming out. Almost assuredly, you've done multiple episodes now about the new mechanics of AOS.
Yes.
I haven't kept up with all the new stuff. Like, what are like the top changes that would excite the kind of gamer that I am about the new version of Age of Sigmar?
Okay. I actually think we might be able to get you back into AOS with AOS 4.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah, I love that.
No, because
I gotta paint an army. I gotta play the game.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay. So I have played the game. Okay, I've played AOS 4.
Okay.
I am allowed to talk about that.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right.
Cool,
so
cool. That's awesome.
I have an official written thing that says I am allowed to talk about it. So yes, I have played AOS 4. It is a lot of fun. But I'm going to specifically see if I can pitch you.
Okay. All right.
So, first off, the game as it has now been designed is so much more clean in its implementation. This is really the first time. You have to understand there was a big changing of the guard amongst the designer crew there. So this is kind of the first iteration of the game where the current lead designer, that's head of the studio, which is Matt Rose, and his new team that he built, actually built it from the ground up. Okay.
And then I heard that Matt Rose was previously a video game developer.
Correct. He was a video game developer. That's right.
Did it ever concern you when you heard this huge person taking responsibility for this large IP that you did not have experience in the field that he was taking charge of?
Well, he played Warhammer since he was a young lad.
Okay, but had not developed war games.
Correct.
But there's enough crossover that it wasn't a concern to you.
Not at all. Especially after I talked to him. So at this point, I've spent hours and hours talking to Matt Rose, and I have the full faith and confidence in this guy. He is an excellent, insightful, very, very, very smart game designer, and
That's awesome.
I just really respect him as someone who certainly thinks of himself as a game designer. We can put that out there. I mean, I've written games, whatever, but I really respect when I hear other game designers talk in certain ways, use certain language, have certain insights, and he hits all of those notes. Okay.
Awesome.
So that's, having somebody steering, oh, captain, my captain. You know what I mean? You have more faith when you believe in the person steering the ship.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, AOS 4. what's going on here? Why do I think, Scott, this might actually be an addition that you like? So, I mean, I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off here first and say, yes,
Don't tell me.
Yes, that the priority roll and the associated double turn still exists, and it always will. But there is a quite interesting balancing mechanic to it now. If you take the double turn, you can't score battle tactics in that round. So actually, it's like it is
That's a big deal.
incredibly impactful to your points. Just keep in mind, 40% of your points are battle tactics.
Right, yeah.
So like you max at 10 if you can score your tactic in a round, because rounds are just now 10 points a round. How you get to those 10 points is slightly different amongst the objectives, but it's always 10 points a round, so 50 points total for a game. Okay? So if you take the double turn, you cap yourself at that turn for 6, whereas your opponent can get 10. That's a significant leap ahead they're going to take.
That is.
So I will say, in my experience, the only time I take the double is if, like, I'm just going to win outright, okay? Like, I got the lucky roll, and I was already in pole position, you know what I mean? Like, I'm already winning, and I just press it all the way home and, like, okay, now I'll just wipe them off the table. Or if I'm, like, completely backed into a corner and, like, well, I'm definitely going to lose. Screw it. I don't need the points anyways. Let's try to dig ourselves out of this, right? That's sort of so you end up taking it in the extreme cases. But anyways, that aside, I know it's always been a bit of a, I don't know, sticking point for you for whatever reason.
For whatever reason, as you describe this like all or nothing scenario, like
yeah, sure.
It almost seems a little bit like, I don't want to say it definitely doesn't sound worse. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what the scenario you described in which a person takes a double turn, that criteria was what Tommy Lyons told me 2 years ago. Like, you only take a double turn when you can win the game. And so it sounds like that's just more true now.
It is more true. It's more codified. But in that, like, that was how only very skilled people played the game before.
Sure does.
Because you just understood that's how it worked best.
I know, but me, when I see red, you know?
Correct.
Like, step on the gas.
Now for sort of so-so pros like yourself, you'll be able to understand the incentives all at the same time because they've been clearly codified.
That hurt.
At any rate, no. But let me talk about the positives, okay? So everything in the game now is an ability. And the sequencing and timing of this is very straight. So for Magic players, it's going to feel incredibly familiar because you declare the ability, and then your opponent has a chance to use reactions to that ability. If they do not, then the effect of the ability happens. For people who are playing Magic, it's like, I put the thing on the stack. If no one counters it, it resolves, right? And that's just, and in every phase, so like combat, shooting, etc., whatever, I use all my abilities. You react to them. You have reactions you may or may not use. And then once I have completed all my abilities, it passes to you. You use all yours. I may or may not react to them. And then that phase is over. Okay? And everything is an ability. Fighting, shooting, moving. It's all abilities. They all clearly have keywords and labels. It's so clean. Like, I've had basically no sort of rules conundrums as I played, because it was just like, this is all... Like, you can't do this if you've used a core move ability. And like, okay, that's move and that's run and that's all these things. It's all very templatized. It's all color-coded. It's all very clearly labeled and so on. And the action-reaction part of it is actually really fun because I will say, like, obviously 3.0 introduced some of this, like, off-turn stuff. You know, it's simple, like, all-out defense. Like, I attack you. Okay, all-out defense, right? And whatever. Yeah. This really takes it to the next level. You can cast spells on your opponent's turn. You can charge on your opponent's turn. You can do all sorts of interesting sort of reactions. And your army will also have its own unique reactions.
Of course.
But, like, at the same time, it is amazing kind of how simplified some of the scrolls and stuff are. They're very clean. They're very effective. Everything fits on a page. Like, there's no scroll in the game that doesn't fit on one page. So everything's just a page. And, you know, it's still resource management as always. You know, AOS and Warhammer in general is all about resource management. Like, you only get 4 command points in a turn, countercharging costs 2 of them. So, like, okay, is that what you want to spend half your command points on, right? Mm-hmm. And so on and so forth. But it feels very much more interactive. It's very clean. Another thing they did was actually go through and rebalance all of the units' stats. This sounds silly, but it actually mattered a lot to me, because I really think about the verisimilitude of the thing a lot, and I always hated that, like, why does this weedy little dorky goblin hero have the exact, in like 3.0, have the exact same combat stats as like the Lord Celestin Stormcast hero? But they were just like 5 attacks, 3 threes, -1, rend, 2 damage. That's what we give hero stats. That's boring. Just because like we knew that was the bound stat. Now things are much more all over the board based on like what type of creature it is. So monsters are much worse at hitting, but they wound very easily. They have higher rend and much more swingy damage and like stuff like that. So everything has been sort of rebalanced to actually fit the verisimilitude of what that thing is, which I like.
Okay. I think when we saw that reveal about AOS, the one thing that I liked to hear, but was kind of a little iffy on if they were actually going to execute on it, was that they were like, no one's ever gone back and like back down the annals of AOS history and like redone stuff. And I was like, that's a good point. Are you implying you're going to do that right now? And the answer was yes, we're going to do that right now. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And they seem like they're actually doing that. Like they're actually looking at the entire rule set of the game and trying to create something from the ground up, or at least modify it from the ground up, which to me is great. Like, always kind of feels like sometimes when things come out in AOS, they get added to the game, maybe a little bit better. Maybe they have a new mechanic that only that thing gets to use, and then kind of everything kind of moves forward in this state of disarray. But like hearing that and then seeing them actually do it was really encouraging. I'm looking forward to playing it. If not just for the universal abilities list, the color coded, like I can use reactions in this phase is purple. I'm like, God damn, like that is all just like really nice. What's the word? Ease of use, ease of access.
UX. It's actually it's a modern, actual usable UX.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to getting to experience all those changes.
Yeah. And I'll say in play, I've been very, very happy with it so far. And they did go back, and you can really see the attention paid. Now, that doesn't mean they changed everything just to change it, of course.
Sure.
Where things worked, you can see how they kept that design, but just kind of updated the templating or something like that. But it was very obvious that they were willing to kill some of their darlings, which I appreciate, right? Because it can be hard to be like, oh, let's really gut some of these things, right? But they did the work.
But not that one darling.
Yeah, I mean, they've said for years now that's like it's intrinsic to it's like the spinal column of the game mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were to pull that out, what do they have to make it unique or make this? I don't want to say rubber banding because this kind of has a natural negative connotation, but like pulling in on both ends of the spectrum, right? You want games to be close and exciting and fun. You got to have some kind of a mechanic that is the blue shell, right? And this is when someone's too far ahead, you got to have the blue shell in the game to be able to to at least keep it interesting. And I get that that's the theory behind it.
Well, they have an official blue shell mechanic in there now because they're actually in the missions or the battle plans or whatever. There's actually an underdog mechanic. So like when you're behind on score, you then get access to some kind of underdog benefit. So you get an extra command point, and then generally each battle plan will have like some small bonus it throws your way, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And I will say it's meaningful in most of the battle plans that I've sort of experimented with. So like it is meaningful.
I like that. I like that more than a double turn. To me, a double turn is like a cannonball, right? But getting an extra command point, that's just like a little morsel, that kind of pushes you a little bit, and it's not like gonna like break up the game and like redefine the current power balance.
Yeah, if I get 4 and you get 5, it's not like, oh my god, I can't touch you, you're so powerful.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so in addition to being super excited on the cusp of Age of Sigmar 4th edition and launching your brand new game,
yes,
we haven't talked a whole lot since Adepticon. It's been 2 months, which I don't know about you, Vince, but part of me feels like we just had Adepticon, and another part of me feels like it was 6 months ago.
It was forever ago. Might as well have been another different decade.
Yes.
I remember I was a young man then, wistful, prideful.
Right. What have you been up to on the hobby side since then?
A lot, my man. So I've been working on a bunch of display pieces for Monte San Savino that I'm going to go over to in November, whenever, this year. I think Kathy, my wife, is going to come over there with me. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Nice.
and really looking forward to that. I mean, obviously, we'll probably do like a vacation on one side or the other of that, depending on how the schedule works out.
Sure.
And so I've been working on a bunch of different display pieces. I've got several, like, I'm not going to call them done because I want to go back and work them more, but like they're done. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When it comes to a competition that's happening 6 months down the road, I actually feel good about like bringing a piece to where I think it's finished, and then I put it in my cabinet and I purposely come back to it a month later or 2 months later.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you sort of reach a point where you're too familiar with it, it's too close, and you need to come back to it with fresh eyes. And so that's why I like to work way ahead on my competition stuff. So that way I can let it sit there and then come back and go, oh, actually I see now. And I can bounce it off other people and stuff like that. So that's one thing I was working on.
Hold on, can we pause on that for a second?
Yeah.
What changed your mind or inspired you or led you down the road of wanting to go to Monte San Savino? Because I know we've had chats about it in the past, and it's on your radar, but you never expressed much interest in going to that kind of event. So did something change your mind, or was it kind of just like now's the time?
No, just now's the time. Yeah, I've always wanted to go. It seems like a great environment. I mean, you had fun there, I think, from
Yeah,
your visit.
definitely.
And there's a lot of people there I respect and like. I like the nature of that competition and how it's run. It sort of seems much more like a shared experience of the art and of the hobby, and so I think that's pretty awesome. I'm Italian, but I've never been to Italy, so it's just a nice chance to go to the homeland, I guess, I suppose.
Okay.
A lot of my family, when they get from like my generation and as well as the generation before me, they would all go back to Italy to get married, because we still have like lots of family over there. But obviously, I did not marry within the clan.
So you've been ostracized.
No, it's nothing like that. My family is all perfectly fine with my
John's
wife.
like, man, I chatted with the board.
What I'm hearing is that Kathy has upset the force.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it wasn't, I wasn't inside. I didn't marry a good Italian girl, as it was. Good Catholic Italian girl. And so like that wasn't something we did. And so yeah, it'd just be a nice chance to go there. So just kind of all around, get to meet and talk to a lot of people who I like, get to share art, hopefully not embarrass myself with what I bring over there, and get to see Italy. So kind of a win all around.
What categories are you entering?
I'll do the sort of main two for like the storytellers and painters, and I'll put them both in the master storytellers and master painters or whatever.
All right, going masters. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel right putting it in anything else. Whether I would get my claw cleaned or anything in, that's fine. But like, I've won enough other awards that I would feel like pretty disingenuous. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that is. I don't consider myself, and I look at that and go, there's 20 people off the top of my head who are going to be in that category who are just like directly destroying even my hardest work with but still that's fine. I can be at the lower end of that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's
I kind of felt a similar way, but multiple people told me that I should enter into standard. This is like my first time at Monte and stuff like that. And so I just kind of followed their advice.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, again, it's where it has to be your personal sense of the thing. And that's why I like it when competitions have that kind of stuff, because you put in where you feel comfortable, like where you want to be. I don't think there's anything like wrong with being in either one, right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. I think there's a part of that that a lot of goody peepees can deal with too, is it's kind of a destination, and maybe that destination is you had to drive 3 hours to go to Adepticon for the first time, and maybe that destination is flying across the country for Nova, or maybe that destination is flying internationally for something. And I've kind of fell in that with Monty too, because like I don't know if and when I'm ready, and you don't know what you don't know, kind of a thing. So it leads to a hesitation. And I think just going, right, is there's value in that. And I'm guessing Scott could attest to that, of just like, you probably didn't feel 100% ready with like, oh, I've built this catalog of these pieces that I've all done and you're ready to go. I don't think you'll ever feel that. I think sometime you just have to be like, well, I'm just going to bring what I've done, or I'm going to try to get a couple more things done or one more thing done. And I just need to go experience and let that be good, instead of feeling I have to feel ready to do it, because you never will.
Yeah.
You know, you'll never feel 100% prepared. And that's kind of in the same way too, where it's like, I might end up going to Monty this year, and this feels like
You should come with us.
it feels like the year to go. You and
It'd be a good
Sam,
time. Yeah.
you know, and the boys invading the Italians, you know, and we'll just, you know, we'll talk about pizza and pineapple on it or whatever they're mad about over there, you know, and we can have the great American invasion.
Yeah, when they bring out the bags, you need to make sure you slaughter them at it, because that's just important to make sure we keep the Italians down in bags.
Oh, they play cornhole?
They brought cornhole out in the night, like at like midnight. 2 cornhole boards just appeared, and then we started to play, and it was they were bad. They were very bad at the game. But
man, there's something that I can take down over there.
Just
would be
keep
some
them in their
cornhole.
place, you know? Yeah. Okay.
Painting awards, challenging. Cornhole winning, now we're in your sweet spot.
Right, exactly. They better bring out the biggest trophies for the cornhole award. We'll bring over some ringers.
Was there a piece that you are preparing in your display model, like entries, that you're most excited about?
Yeah, there's a couple like that I'm actually pretty happy with. There's like a Nurgle sort of Sister of Battle in 75 millimeter from Hardcore Miniatures that I really like, and I've done like just an absolute metric ton of work on back and forth and working with other people, and I still know I need to go back and change some more stuff now, because I went back and looked at it and a bunch of things clicked in my mind again doing that. There's a few other pieces, like there's a couple things from Mindwork Games, probably as this goes out, that their Kickstarter is running, so I'm also working on stuff for their Kickstarter, and I worked on the Tempest piece from them, which I really like. I really like her a lot, but there's just I've got a big sort of stack of things that I have, and I walk in there in between projects and think like, and just kind of stare at them to try to build up more ideas. Right now I think I've got 4 or 5 pieces done. So, but I want to be able to choose and work on a couple more, and they take a while, right? Obviously. So, but that's where I'm at.
I think you're approaching this from the way, in an ideal world, that everyone's competing for going to a competition would do it, but very few of us actually do it, and that is get things at 95% of the way done months in advance. So you give yourself that breathing room and the ability to turn back and to reevaluate, get feedback, fiddle with stuff. Whereas you're just like running up to a deadline, which is how I seem to always work. No matter how much time I start, how early I start, run right up to the deadline, to give yourself that breathing room and to come back at it with fresh eyes and not being like just so tired of looking at it where you can't see the piece anymore. Have you found that working on multiple pieces at once, that's helped you look at a piece, even though you've been actively working on it, just being able to step away from it? Has that helped?
Yeah, 100%. And keep in mind, it's also intermingled with, obviously, with, AOS 4 coming out and new Skaven happening. That means I'm going to have to paint a whole new Skaven army as well.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, I only have like 12,000, 11,000, somewhere in that range of points of existing painted Skaven, so might as well just throw all those in the trash and start over. Like, let's whoop, over the shoulder. Those are gone.
How much of that is actually true?
How much of that's really going to go?
Yeah, I mean, like, you're not going to throw it away.
No, I wouldn't.
Like,
throw it
are
away.
you going to paint another 10,000 points of new Skaven?
Yeah, eventually, sure. I am going to retire major chunks of it. I actually have already started going through everything and sort of categorizing it and trying to decide, like, what is just straight retired, what gets replaced, and then, you know what I mean? Like, there's a new version of it, I want to paint this, I want to completely redo it. And then what actually should I take and maybe repaint?
Okay.
Right, like an existing thing, and just like prime them, repaint them, start over from scratch.
Listen, I could only assume that according to the video title, you did in fact throw away 10,000 points in rats. Right? Because I'm assuming that's got to be the name of the title.
Sure, yeah.
Of the video.
I threw away 10,000 points of an army.
Yeah.
Or just burned it.
If you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And for that video, I'm going to go ahead and need to borrow 10,000 points of your rats.
Sure,
that can't be thrown away.
Yeah, that can be thrown away.
I just realized that we never talked about what we painted.
Yeah, this is a good transition. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so speaking of,
Vince brought a rat along. So is this a start of like doing some test schemes.
Yeah,
Is
correct.
This, okay.
So I had this Warlock Bombardier. He's a relatively new fig, right? Like that is to say, he's not getting retired. He's still the current. He will be the current Warlock Bombardier. And it's a really fun fig, crazy little rat with a thingamajiggy. And I started by looking at the color plates of the old Skaven heraldry book. If you remember this came out in like 2006, I think. They published a couple of these, like the Heraldry of the Empire, the Heraldry of Skaven, and I think they did a High Elf one. They only did like 3 of them. But they're awesome books. And they have like all the major sort of factions and stuff like that. So they have in Skaven, they have all the different clans. And then they have paint schemes of what the clan rats look like, and their leaders look like, and their flags look like, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was looking through all of those to see like what caught my eye. And you know, the challenge with it is it has to be replicable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because you're going to be painting like a lot of these
At scale.
and so I want it to be really good. Like I am generally trying to paint the best army in the country for AOS. Okay, like that is my general goal. That if I go to any event, I should pull home best painted. Okay, like no matter who is there.
Okay.
And I know who else has all the other best painted armies. Okay.
Who are they?
Sure. So a guy named Bleep Bloop, his real name's Kit, but everybody just calls him Bleep Bloop. He has a Soulblight Gravelord's army that's one of the best 3, 100%. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's incredible. He's worked on it for years. It's all very, very, very non-metallic throughout the whole thing and very well done. There is Oscar Lars, who has a Nurgle force that is one of the most beautiful sort of Nurgle armies in the country. Oscar's, I'm speaking about the U.S. here. Obviously, I haven't, like I judge most of the big U.S. tournaments for painting, so I see most of these armies. Oscar's force is absolutely gorgeous. It's the level of detail is exceptional. It is really, really, really top notch. And then there is, and then you know Martin Orlando would be another one. He has force from his sort of a couple of his most recent forces, but probably his Lumineth would be the one that most readily comes to mind for a lot of people that is at that quality level.
Amazing. Cool. Appreciate
And these are like all the guys you mentioned there. And I know Martin is getting into some more display or painting for competitions in times that I've talked with him. But Oscar Lars is obviously an amazing painter outside of army painting. But these guys like spend so many hours on just one army.
Yep.
And you are attempting to go toe-to-toe when you, like, your list of other things you do is also, like, fucking Santa Claus Christmas list.
Sure.
And so that's very, very hard. And I'm kind of in a similar boat of how I want to approach my Skaven army is, like, I want this to be, by and large, like, leagues higher than any army I've ever painted. And that excites me. That's why I'm doing that. But kind of wrapping my brain around being in a similar boat that you're talking about here, in a horde army,
Yeah,
is a scary a thing to attempt. And I just went through my test schemes of my Skaven, so I look at this and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's different than what I did. I wonder if I can big borrow and steal a little bit of that, or it's like, oh, I think I did it differently. Do I like mine, or do I like holding Vince's here better? And I'm going through all that. Do you think that there's some wiggle room in total quality when you're also talking about quantity in an army?
Sure. I mean, as a judge, I certainly evaluate things like I'm evaluating your characters, the central models, the larger models more severely than I'm evaluating a unit of 40 dudes when I'm judging your army for paint quality, right? So like there's always I'm going to accept that you're not doing. I don't ever expect, nor do I look at it and say like, oh, you didn't do display quality on all of this unit of 30 guys. Like, no, like, did you put in the steps to make them look good and stuff like that? And then, and so on and so forth from there. But when you've got a central special character, it's your maiden character on a dragon, your knight on a dragon, right in the center of the thing, like put the time into that, because if I pick that up and see basic errors, I'm going to be like, come on. So yeah, this was the little thing here with the designs, and I wanted to try to really get a very striking red to show off against the green. I don't know if it's going to work in the end or not. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold on this, but it doesn't matter. But this is based on a clan that was in the book called Clan Scully. which is very funny because obviously there's Clan Molder. Like the base is nothing. The base is just something I threw together real quick because I'm going to do 3D printed design bases or something. But there's Clan Molder, and so they had to do a Clan Scully as well. And so this is Clan Scully.
Ah, yes, Scully and Molder. Those two things. That could be people. They could be books. They could be rocks. I have no fucking clue.
Mulder and Scully are the two agents from the X-Files.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was no hope for me
David
there.
Duchovny and Gillian Anderson.
Zero hope. Okay. I mean,
We knew that rock was going to sail.
Yes.
I was just looking this up because when I was looking at different color schemes, I think some of the pictures that I saw were from this Heraldry of Skaven book.
Uh-huh.
Jesus Christ, if you can, even if you can find it, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
yeah, I have the Empire one.
Great book.
Yeah.
They were really quality, but they were really only for like super nerds like us who want to dig through color plates and stuff. I don't think anybody else bought them.
Yeah, I don't want like a Talib clan or Talibheim like army. I want like that deep Empire country. Like,
Yeah, you got to go.
No
into
one's
the
ever
deep
heard
lore.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that. All right, so we'll transition from your talk about Skaven in 4.0 to let's bring it back a little bit to one Monty and two Undead. Something I want to share here that I've been working on.
I'm excited.
I affectionately have named him over painting him the last couple of days the Sad Clown. You'll know as looking at him. So I've been working on this Mindwork Studios model for a couple days, and he's to what I would call that, like 80% done. He's going to be done. He's done for the video that I'm painting him for. And I got this giant fucking base that he comes with that I've got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you worry about that backside?
I turned the model around when he first showed it to me, and he was like, "Don't look at that."
This is a classic. You are going to be the new, like, this was a thing that was always plagued, like, Deno and stuff for a while. It's like, don't paint the backs, right?
Yeah.
There's several different painters who this sort of thing has followed around. I just want everybody to now lambast John for the rest of time with this thing.
Yeah.
Because literally you had Christoph last year at Nova be like, John, the front of this miniature is beautiful. It's gorgeous. It looks great. You did a good job. Did you paint the back?
Hey, listen, I was sitting at that table for an hour before I had to turn it in to put some color on it. God damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, these things are like 4 or 5 inches tall. There's so much work that goes in the front. I'm just like tired. I don't want to do the back. That's boring. There's no pictures of that back.
What connects to his back there?
It's so he's on one pillar on that, and the other pillar is.
Oh, he's like leaning against it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm not kidding you. They're the size of a fucking Snickers bar. They're like 7 inches tall by an inch and a half. I'm not looking forward to painting those pillars. I think I'm just gonna take a big fat brush and just do large tracts of land will be covered.
Stone is easy, man.
I know. It's really got to push the really dynamic lighting of hitting his face and his torso and stuff, and it really falls off around there. So I had a lot of fun.
That guy's cool.
I had a lot of fun. I disliked when I first saw, and it's the art that's inspired by, and then seeing it in 2 dimensions. I disliked that model. I had Mateo send it to me because it is an undead, and I have a soft spot for that. But it's an undead with some character, and just like the look on his face has got this. This is kind of outside of the world of just like war and fighty guys with pointy sticks. He's got something else going inside
there's
of
the
him.
humanity there.
Yeah, and so I tried to bring out that humanity in color, in brushstrokes and lighting and stuff to create some drama there. But
No, it's funny because I'm with you. When I looked at the art and the sort of render of that one, it didn't interest me at all.
no,
But now that I've actually held it, like I was like, I kind of want that one too.
yeah,
I really like it. Like, it's funny. It is funny the difference between like the render of a model, the 2D art of a model, and actually holding the thing in your hands. Like, there is just absolutely a complete difference between those two things.
It really is. And like people that can execute on an amazing concept into an amazing model, it's not granted. Like, it is a skill that you have to have. I'm working right now with the guy making Slapshot Showdown. Just because I loved his concept for his hockey players, and I was like, hey, if you ever need any kind of consulting on like model design, like I'm not like the most amazing person, but I'd love to offer up any free advice I can have. And so he's been sending me concepts and sculpts, and I've been telling them like how to improve it. But it is not easy. It is a skill. But coming back to this guy, all kinds of different colors on this mini, right? Blues, reds, greens,
And it's only six paints were used.
6 paints.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. So, and when you were painting it, you were trying to make it look like the actual art by Brom, right?
That was the origin point. It's a very strong Zorn palette on this art piece of his.
Okay.
So I started with that, and then you have like the pyro red, you have the ochre, you have the transparent umber, and then I brought in this magenta. He has this almost like a pink magenta that's in this, and then a turquoise. So I just brought in those 2 extra ones other than the original 3, the Zorn Trinity. And I started with it, but then I decided I liked going a little bit more over the top with the dead parts of the skin that have been sewed back on. And the idea of not all sections that this Frankenstein monster were sewn together took hold, kind of like when you do a transplant.
Sure, the body can reject some
Yeah,
parts,
the body can reject. So there was different levels of rejection that had happened in this, and I'm kind of trying to tell a little bit of that story, and that required a little bit more color, but still trying to stay true to that Zorn in the main tones, but like adding in these weird little parts of more yellow or more pink or more green, sickly green, and then obviously the dead blue was fun. So I just kind of went with it and didn't feel like I'm trying to do a one-to-one translation of his work, because then it's just like it can only be lesser, you know.
Oh,
if
sure.
If you're trying to copy the, you know, you're being a tracer. You know, you can never trace better than the original artwork of the comic book that you're tracing off of, right?
Sure.
So that was it. I had a lot of fun with this. I was like walking into it not really being super excited about where I was going to go, and it was within an hour of this, I was just like, I'm just having fun here. It's obviously not painted to be 100% smooth, and I don't think I ever want it to be 100% smooth, because I think some of the roughness, the strokes, the color jumping in quickly, I like that, and I'm kind of an experimenting in my own style and trying things in a different way. And this is so far removed from all the time I've spent with painting in a GW style.
Sure.
And that scale, it was like it forced me to break out of that, because I don't think painting to that more heavy metal, the more leaning into what I've liked in working well in that Games Workshop style. I don't think that necessarily it would sell best, or I was comfortable in doing that at this scale.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it a little bit beforehand, is that the techniques and the ideas implemented on a display model are different. With gaming figures and a GW model, like the lines of division between like where a detail begins and ends and like what kind of material it is, it's like almost unquestionable with those kinds of things. It's very clean. It's very orderly. And then you get into the world of sculpted display models and even hand sculpted display models. And then those lines become blurrier and harder to understand and harder to define. And so I feel like the strategies you employ also kind of follow that methodology. They're not so clean cut. They kind of flow a little bit more. Less rules, less structure to the approach. At least that's how it works for me.
I think that totally makes sense. And like, I think you just, because it's also somewhat like of an anchor bias thing, right? Like with the existing models, if you're talking about a GW model or anything in that scale or size for an army, you know there's sort of an existing color palette, set of expectations, things that are around it. It might be different, like you said, might be this clan paint job versus this one, but like that it sort of operates within a space.
Yeah.
Whereas you just don't have the same expectations when you pick up a brand new display model, right? Like maybe there's a piece of box art, maybe there's not. Like not all of them have that. So it's really just you kind of being like, well, what does this feel like to me?
Right, yeah, and for a lot of people, that's actually kind of like a concern. People struggle with that kind of freedom.
Yeah, that's tough. You're in the middle of the ocean,
Right?
Right, and so you looking around in all directions. Which direction do I take? That's overwhelming. But I think once you just like, oh, I'm just gonna not overthink it and just get started with it, it starts to be more defined, and there's a level of fun in that freedom. and you have space to work. I forget every time I start a 54 or 72 or a bust. I forget how much fun it is to just have the freedom to work on a larger section. And when I say larger section, I'm talking about like a quarter of an inch by a half inch. It's so fucking tiny in the grand scheme of reality that we live in, but it just feels like it's like a fucking football field I get to paint.
Oh, let me luxuriate. Oh, look at this bicep. It's so large.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing. All right, something that I painted. I finished up my unit of Incubi, and I did some more experiments with the blades that just
Is that the official plural? Incubi?
I don't fucking know. Incubi, incubuses. I don't know. But they're all done. For the base, I tried something different. I used the background story that I have for the army to inspire the base. So they live on a desert area, but like they're industrious. There's soot, there's ash. And so I wanted it to be desert-like, but I wanted it to also look ashen. It just turns out that's the exact same color palette of the model as well. And so maybe that doesn't work out so well. People often say that bases are designed to, kind of make the model kind of pop out a little bit like a picture frame kind of. And so I would have used maybe like a mostly dark base on this largely bright model to kind of have a contrast well. But the weapons, they're weird. I don't really know. My original plan totally fucked up. And then my next plan.
That's going to happen. Don't worry.
Okay. My next plan also kind of messed
John
up.
is dying.
I know.
Live on the podcast.
Whenever I'm with John and he fucking starts beeping, I get real concerned. But yeah, I had two plans for the blades, and they both did not pan out. And then the third idea is the one that John's holding, where I just paint shitty lightning bolts with a metallic silver paint. Hopefully on the next 5, I actually kind of figure out what I want it to look like. But yeah, that's that unit.
I mean, overall, they look really good. I like the armor. It's right in your wheelhouse, this sort of traditional soft shading.
Yeah.
I kind of wish there was a little more little yellow accent pieces. You got a couple in there.
A little bit more?
Yeah, I think you could go a little bit more here or there, honestly. I like the yellow in there. I think it looks really nice. The sort of kind of bit of ochre into a little bit of sun at the top. I think the basing is fine. Like, I don't think you have to. I think with a very neutral-ish fig like this, you wouldn't want the base to be like some colorful explosion of stuff. I think actually having it neutral like that works better. I mean, I would definitely paint them tufts. I'll say that. I'm seeing some non-painted tufts here.
Who the hell paints tufts? I'm on the boat of not even painting my basing material anymore.
You got to paint the tufts. Like, you got to get some like
wash.
You have to put wash down on the tuft and wipe it around. That way it looks like it can, like, that way that it'll connect the tuft to the space it's around, because right now it's completely separate from the environment. Like, none of this dirt is on the plant.
I know.
When you walk around in nature, dirt is on plants.
Yeah.
And
I
like,
fear
stuff like that.
if I wash, say, that plant with a similar color or the same wash as I wash the base with, the two are so similar in their normal tone that it would just look like more rocks because it's so
what
small?
you do is a little bit of Agrax. It's almost always Agrax. It's almost universally the answer.
Okay.
You shove a dot down in there. You wipe around the outside. You let it dry. And then you come in with like ivory or something like that with a wet brush, and you just go whoosh, and you wipe once across the top to dry brush the little top tips, because then you also capture the effect of the sunlight in the tall grass where you see those reflection points of it. It takes like 10 seconds and all, but it will make the tufts actually look like they're integrated in the environment you're sitting in. It's the number one piece of feedback I usually give people on there when they ask me about their basing is like integration of tufts.
Ain't no one got time for that.
I really like this.
It takes like 20 seconds.
The sickly green on the base, because you have a very restrained paint job here. Like, it's very surgical, the way that you've used color and subtlety on these, that you have the same level of subtlety in the base. You could push a little bit more, maybe like a Beal tan green is a kind of bluish green wash by Games Workshop. You can even add just put a little bit of that more into the shadows, just add a little bit more of a color in there, but it's not going to overwhelm, and it's not going to push the saturation beyond where it is for your level for the paint job of the army. But I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the desert base works great. Yeah, I agree. You could use a little, like, just a slight dash of yellow pigment or a slight dash of very, very, very light red pigment or something like that, and that could, just create some visual noise on there. It's not required, but it would just be a thing. The armor itself is very well executed. It looks really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to have them done. Like, it's so nice to, I don't know, it's nice to spend a long time on the thing and then add it to the small army and then see the small army grow. Like, it makes me super happy just to add a unit to an ongoing army. So it's fun.
With this blade, you should actually, you love tracing small thin lines with metallic paint.
I love it.
You're like on the edge of Damascus steel here. You might as well just do Damascus steel.
I'm definitely, and that's kind of a funny idea you mentioned that. I just saw like some person who like paints in Damascus steel make some kind of commentary on a recent GW article.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. But that is a cool idea that I haven't thought of before.
Like it would just be literally taking the shapes you already have and filling in more lines around it right now.
Yeah. Do you know what I tried to do originally that failed? I'm not sure how up to date on the podcast you are.
I have watched up to the most recent episode. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, yeah. So I don't know if Damascus steel is exactly what I'm trying to do with like the crackling matte black with like this thin veins of silver below.
I understand.
But that could work. That could work for sure.
I'm just saying it'd be very different. I've never it looks like when I looked at it, I was like, if there was just some more lines, we'd just have that. It actually looked pretty cool. Not the original idea, but sometimes happy little accidents are better than our original plan.
Yeah, and it might work cool too to like use more of like an alien blued steel.
Yeah, absolutely. You can stain it. Yeah, so it's not exactly the thing. 100%.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, that works really well with the Damascus pattern.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a whole army, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's only the incubate. It's not the other people. John's dying.
Mm-hmm. Keep it. So, yeah, this will be the last Warhammer model I've ever painted is the machines have their way with me. This is Georgie the Conehead that I painted with using the Color Cube limited palette idea.
You loving that cube?
I just love how it like you don't have to overthink what little color do I need to add, and by and large it comes out with it feels like a level of harmony in the paint schemes. It's just very freeing, and then I get to spend my mental energies on other things.
Sure. Like
I was really happy with the kind of a quick, highly saturated skin tone on this one, and then I was happy with the way that the cloak worked out in the back, especially on the yellow. And then just accent colors just kind of work it, and then you phone in all the metallics. That's how you paint.
I was going to give you shit about the gold that you just applied a base coat to and then washed in like some kind of warm color.
Yeah, it's just a flesh tone wash. I think by and large TMM only looks shittier the more effort you put into it, and so I like how that looks.
Very strong disagree on that. I suppose that would be true if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and the people that put a lot of effort into doing that, I look at that and I'm like, I personally don't like it. I think it looks bad. So I can see how you would say that, Vince, but you're wrong. But I like the basic. Paint it, lead belcher, wash it. The more
we call those just bad metals.
The more weathering you
just
put
bad.
in, the more weathering you put into it in a TMM, it can look really good. When you want it to be shiny and like clean and whatever, I don't think those 5 extra steps look better. I don't think the way that looks right now looks good particularly. I just don't want.
I agree.
I just don't want to do NMM on it. Because that's how it would look better. And that's a lot of bullshit little details there that I don't want to work with reflections on.
Don't you think if you just dry brush this like end of this gold staff, it would look slightly better?
It's all been edge highlighted.
Oh.
I mean, not every single edge, but all the upward station edges and everything.
Yeah. I was looking at the underside of the staff. But the top half definitely is. You're right.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it is what it is. It's TMM.
I don't think it distracts from the model. I think the thing that you mentioned, the thing that you like a lot, this lovely warm shaded ochre jacket, and the thing that struck me immediately when I looked at it was her face, or his face. I'm
not sure.
But yeah, like you do this thing that I really struggle to do, and where it's like you have this insanely bright like highlight right here, and then just immediately this whole half of this face is this really dark, warm skin tone color, and you continue that in the temples. But it's not problematic for me. I don't think it's an issue. It works somehow, and it creates this incredibly contrasted skin tone. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree. Medals aside, I actually really love it. Like I like the spotlight on the face. I like the little blue dots. It's a nice, like it's good use. You know, you get the little color cube thing. You still have to decide how you want to use the color.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
And I think
true.
you did a good job there of actually implementing colors. I like the yellow, I like the blues. I like the way you've kind of balanced them around the fig. Looks nice.
Yeah, as a couple of really strong warm colors, a couple of really strong cold colors, you have to be careful in how you segment those out, where you're going to put them. Like that really strong kind of like sky blue will overtake that whole thing if you use it too much.
Right.
And so when I went with the Fireman's Rain Slicker, what was it? Yeah. Also, it was one of those quick turnaround video weeks where I had like 3.5 days to do the video. I had time to I was like, okay, I'm at 4 hours on this thing. I gotta get this metal painted. And I agree, because it's now certain factions like Necrons, like you can't do the metals like this. There's so much. The metal is the figure, right?
Yeah.
You know, but if it's accented, it's like, you know, okay, let the other colors do the singing for you. I think that's okay too.
Sure.
Last one for me. I'm painting a red version of Darth Vader, and I'm struggling. Originally, I was like, oh, I can use neutral colors. But then I was like, you know what? Darth Vader is all black. If I'm going to make a red Vader, this motherfucker should be all red. No grays, no tans, no nothing. I think I'm going to allow myself brown, because I feel like brown is the most spiritually related to red neutral tone that exists. And I'm not going to say it looks good. I don't think it looks good at the moment. But my plans are this.
Okay.
So I was struggling on the hue front. Like, there's only so many red colors you can use. And then furthermore, they don't all look good together necessarily. And so for the red cloth, which is the most recent thing I painted, I kind of used a similar hue to his armor, but it's more of a warmer hue as opposed to the armor being more of a scarlet one. But I want to add texture to the fabric. And I think I want to paint his cloak the exact same color as like his waistcoat jacket thing. Add texture to that and paint that square box in the middle of his chest, you know, where he gets like his Tic Tacs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Paint that the same color as his armor, like the shimmery.
His air conditioning unit.
It's his air conditioning unit, yeah. I want to paint that the same color as his metallic red armor. So you because I feel like there's a bit of a divide. He's got a top half and a bottom half, and there's none of that stuff in the middle. So I paint that box metallic red, paint the cape the same kind of red as like his waistcoat thing, but with texture. Is this gonna come full circle, or is it gonna look like dog shit?
All right. What level of feedback do you want me to say here?
Dude, murder me.
Okay. I first of all,
this is trash.
It's not trash. It's very well executed painting, of course.
It's very well executed trash.
But here's my problem. First of all, those two reds are not different. Like, I know you said they're different. They're not different. They're like close enough in color. You needed to go like, if you're going to try to do two different reds, you need to go like this delta or something like that. Like the armor, and that's too close. And like, I'd need to see what the texture is on the cloth to know whether or not that's going to do it. But my main problem still remains the shiny parts don't go shiny enough. Like, none of the shiny things are bright enough. They're not coming up to a, like, reflective shiny red reflects white. It just does. Like,
some of it does. If you look at like the red on like Captain America's shield, like that does not like go super crazy bright.
No, but there's a white specular highlight on it. Is it glossy? If yes, there is a specular highlight.
Sure. But
right?
it does not dominate large portions of the model.
I agree. You want very small volumes. And like, that's the problem, is that we just like, there's like this little dot here that's kind of close. Like, I bet if I color picked that, I'd get like a, like if this was the red bar, red to black, if I color picked it, I'd end up in like the top quadrant, the top left quadrant. But I don't think I'd be anywhere near like an actual specular highlight. And I think that the pants is a real sticking point for me, because he's got like pinstripes in the pants. It looks like he's wearing like zoot suit pants because of the red. Like he's about to have he's got going to the Cherry Poppin' Daddy's concert. Okay.
It's sculpted like that.
Throw back a bottle of beer.
There you go. Very good.
Riot. Nice.
And so I understand it's sculpted like that, but it works differently in black than it does in red, because you have painted pinstripe pants. That's what happens when you add a color. You get pinstripe pants.
What do I do?
I mean,
You
Vader
horizontal.
has very specific color palettes he's ever existed in, which is black and white, like the redeemed Vader outfit, right?
Yeah.
I think you could do it. I think, like, if I was you, like, what I would do is probably very much minimize the recess in the pants. Like, I understand there's probably some texture there. Maybe it exists. I don't know. This fig doesn't seem like it's super deeply sculpted in there. So I would way soften that, get rid of like the black, because that's what's giving the pinstripe effect, right? And I would bring the pants and the cloak, this inner cloak, into a deeper like whole red or scarlet or something like that. Like really pick a very whammo, blammo, separate, obvious at a glance red, and then move into, you can use the same universal highlight tone or something. It'll still react differently with that as you build through your texture and stuff like that. And then with the armor, I would really deepen some of the shadows. That's the other problem. Like on this, I guess that's okay on the helmet. Yeah, never mind. You're good on the shadows. I was thinking this was part of that, but it's not. That's part of his tabard, isn't it? This top part is part of his tabard.
Yeah, his sleeves are like the same thing as his pants.
Okay, yeah. So like, I would probably move those into a similar color family, and then this thing is armor, right? His crotch piece.
His crotch piece is supposed to be shiny armor.
Yes. Okay.
Look at my dick.
Then just absolutely, I would just pop the highlights like way up on that red. I mean, I would take it all the way up into like white pink, in a very, 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 very small volume.
I know, that scares me. That idea scares me.
When I did the Soulblight diorama for Golden Demon last year, and I had the red armor on her, I worked up pink up to pure white, and then what I did is I went back in with the red from Chimera, and I'd glaze over the whole thing, and then I'd do it again.
Yep, correct.
So you'd figure out, you just have to tell yourself, I don't have to do this in one pass. I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to crank it up to 11, and then I'm going to glaze it back down and see what I think, and then decide if I want to do it again. But yeah, then it was like just that whole process. You feel like I just made all my work look like shit.
No, yeah.
It's a really dumb, scary thing. But yeah, it's like it has to go up, and then when you do that final glaze back down, it's still super bright, and then you go back in with that dot of pure white just at your specular points.
Yeah, and you don't have to use pure white if you don't want. You could always use like a very near white in that scheme. But use like a complementary white. So like pick a white blue, like an ice blue, something like that.
Really?
That'll actually work a lot better as a specular highlight than pure white, because it's because of the cold nature of it. It'll actually feel brighter than if you use a pure white because of the slight blue tone that's in there when placed against the red next to it.
Okay.
So stuff like that.
Yeah, the way you describe painting the red armor is the approach I'm trying to take here, using crimson red on the armor and a different ink on the other spots. But I don't know, if I leave any amount of white around, and like I have in some areas, it just looks really bad and it looks very distracting. And so I've been white shy when it comes to doing red NMM, because it feels like it really just steals the whole show away from it being red armor. Maybe I just need to do it even less, even smaller surface area covered in white.
Yeah, it's really about very small volumes, right? Like it's got to be present, but there. Like, you know, if you go look at like a super shiny car, you know, super shiny cars, red cars are like very, very. There's a ton of white on the reflection points, on the specular highlight points, like the edges, the corners, stuff like that. Like it's there, it's present.
There's whole upward angled like surfaces that run the whole length of the car that'll look almost pure white as you're going down the road. But yeah, it's just about the majority of the car has to read as red.
Let's reference. I've just brought a photo up to reference to Scott. Okay, so let's reference the master himself.
Come on, man.
So I'm just saying,
you're doing this to me right now.
Do you know who painted that?
I'm gonna assume it's one of two people.
Okay.
Pisarsky?
I actually haven't seen this model before. I mean, I've seen the model, but not the paint job. It's either Pisarsky or it's the Big Russian Bear.
Yeah, it's Lan. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
And you can see there, that's, you know, shiny red armor. And again, if I color picked in those highlights, like he's going warm, so he's using something that has still a little bit of yellow in it, but it's like for that paint job, that's white, right? Like it's pretty close. And look at how dominant that is. But you don't have any problem reading that as red armor, right?
Yeah. Fine.
I knew you wouldn't believe me, but you would believe it if I showed you the best painter in the world or one of the 5 best painters in the world
tough
doing
because
it.
this model is 4 times the size as mine, and so it's difficult to fit this level of contrast in smaller surfaces.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
squint your eyes, it's smaller. That's how it works.
You know, I just want to be done painting this Red Vader. I don't want to keep going back to it.
No one made you paint it.
You did.
I learned it by watching you.
That's what I painted.
Okay.
Welcome to the end of the podcast. I'm sorry if the video isn't running anymore. It's just so easy to chat to this man forever, and we run out of SD card space. But, Vince, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for bringing Deth Wizards to us and showing us and talking about it. Where's the best place for people to go and check the game out? Is it just is it a simple link down in the show notes below? Is there there are videos on your channel about it?
That's right.
Where are all the places?
DethWizardsGame.com. You can go there. That has links to everything. You can also, of course, go to my channel. There are links there as well. But we have videos up on there, full bat rep, sort of explainer of the primary loop and how to play it, game overview, like full designer Q&A went up on my channel, so that way you can we answer all your common questions, like 2 hours of stuff. So long story short, there is just an absolute ton of video content, but hit deathwizardsgame.com. You can order the game there as well. As I said, the PDF alone is $13. The PDF plus the book is $18. The supplementary optional cards are also $18. And you can find all 6 figures from Knuckle Bones Miniatures for the core Necromancers on the site as well.
Very nice. Very nice. If you guys enjoyed the podcast and you want to support it, just like we enjoy Deth Wizards and want to support it, you can find a bunch of links down in the show notes that will help you to do that. If you don't have any cash to spend, you want to support us in free ways, just share our podcast with some of your friends, your nerdy friends, your mom, your dog, all of them. They'll all love it because we're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can whitelist YouTube channels on YouTube, we play an ad every 30 minutes, and that gives us a little bit of dosh. If you got some cash to throw around, you can check out our Patreon, where we publish an extended episode of each extended podcast episode where we go into things like new techniques we tried out, new products we tried out, what we thought of them, other paint jobs from other painters that we appreciate, why we appreciate them. We also give feedback to our patrons as well. You can find that on Patreon, all linked down in the show notes below. You can also find down there a Teespring, so you can get some awesome Tup merch, some joggers, some t-shirts, some cups, all kinds of stuff's down there.
You know, we always love having Vincy V on here. And we can't wait till the next time that we get him back. Until then, we will catch you on the
Flippity flop.